Come on, no, step around that Dodge guy. Now, come up in the front and sit down there. There you go. Sit down right in the front. I want you guys right in the front because you're going to like this one, okay? Maybe. I want my cool wave brakes. Hey, welcome back to Dove Tech Talks. I'm your host, Eddie Horton. Tonight, it's all about you Chevy guys. I know you've been waiting. I've been getting death threats. People wanting to come by and do physical harm to me because I haven't talked about a Chevy. Well, tonight, it's all about you guys, except for one thing. Ford did beat you in one place. 1917, the first Ford truck came out. It was a Model TT in 1917. Sorry. But hey, you Chevy guys, 1918, you came around and you brought out your first truck. And it was a pretty cool looking truck, I might add. So don't worry, you're still doing okay. All right, so let's get started. Now, you know, in 1918, there wasn't a whole lot of people with enough money to buy a Chevrolet pickup truck. So let's fast forward to 1973. 1973 was the first year of the Square. You guys know what I'm talking about. Square body Chevrolet truck. Man, it was a huge hit. So they were selling them like crazy. And in my opinion, it's one of the best looking trucks that GM ever made. This thing is so versatile. It had short beds, long beds, four-wheel drives. They had them lowered. They even made one later on in life. It was called the S10 and the S15. And they looked just like the old Squares. They were great. These were made all the way up to 1987. And then we introduced the second gen. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Your second gen 2010 Silverado 1500. So let's get going on that. Now, you guys, there are some problems with the 2010 Chevy 1500s. It's not bad. It's just little things you need to take care of and be aware of. Now, some of the good things about the Chevy 1500 Silverado, however you want to call it, you can call it the 1500, you can call it the Silverado, you can call it your four-door. The cool thing about these things is there's a lot of aftermarket parts. You can lift these things, you can lower them, you can stretch them, you can shorten them. They've been used for Baja trucks, drag racing trucks, off-road vehicles, rock climbing. I mean, you name it, they've raced them. They've had them in the dirt races every once in a while. Don't do so well because they're kind of big and cumbersome, but they were out there nonetheless. These things have been used for everything from taking family vacations to going on your first hunting trip with your dad. So let's talk about the price of these trucks. I don't care if it's an extended cab, four-wheel drive, all that other stuff. They range anywhere from $9,500 all the way up to $19,500, 20 grand for a used 2010. Now this is going to be big factors on four-wheel drive, what engine configuration, transmission you've got in this thing, what bed's on it. If it's been crashed, there's a lot of stuff that's variables. Now be careful of these trucks too, because for some reason they get put in the lakes a lot when they're backing their boat down the ramp, and then whoops, and then it's in the water. It's bad. I mean, it's just embarrassing. And be careful because you can't end up with one of those trucks. They dry them out, they bring them to the lower 48, and say, "Hey, got you a new truck here." Remember what I said about buying these trucks that you think may have been in the water. Get inside, close the doors, roll the windows up in the sun, wait 5 minutes. It's a very distinctive fishy smell. You'll know right away they've been making sushi in your truck. All right? So be careful of that. A lot of these trucks get abused also. So when you're buying your truck, you're buying your first 2010 Chevy Silverado, be careful. These things get used for everything. It could have been somebody's truck that they drove from job site to job site. That truck's going to be beat on pretty good. So it's going to have low mileage for it to be worth anything to you. Now, another thing you want to keep away from is trucks that have been put out for salesmen's vehicles. Salesmen are hard on vehicles. They drive these things 100 miles an hour everywhere, and they say, well, it's only highway miles. Well, it's a lot of city driving too, and they drive very aggressively, most salesmen, to get to their next appointment. So be careful when you're buying these trucks because they have been used for everything. Now, for trucks this size, they don't get bad gas mileage. I'm talking 15 in the city and 22 on the highway. That's not real shabby. There is one thing that we want to talk about also when you're talking about these fuel mileage. Chevy did something, and I think they're all doing it. It's kind of dumb. They're canceling out 4 cylinders when you're on the highway and you get to a cruise speed. The truck knows this. It cancels out 4 cylinders. It's some kind of ecosystem. Here's the problem with that. They fail. And when they have a lifter failure because they've been trying to hold these valves closed and open and everything else for this ecosystem, the problem happens is you got to get them replaced. You got to get those lifters replaced in there. That's a very expensive job. So what you might want to do if you're getting one of these trucks and you've not had any problems with it, talk to your local shop that's a high-end repair shop, and they could probably delete that system for you, send the computer off, have it taken out of there, and then unplug a few things on the truck. No more 4-cylinder truck. Your V8 power all the time. Now you got a 7,000-pound towing capacity. You could put 1,605 pounds in the bed of this thing. I mean, it does pretty good for 1,500. The other thing is, they look great. I mean, inside these trucks, they don't spare any expense. Even the base models are very nice inside. And if you get the LTZ, that truck, there's not a Cadillac out there that can rival this thing. I mean, they're really nice inside. Now, there's also accessories for these things. You can accessorize these things like crazy. So here, you got wheels and tires, of course. You've got step bumpers. You got rock guards for the sides. You got steps for the sides. You got vent shades. You got reverse cameras. You've got the tailgate piece that lets it go down assist. And it kind of opens up and it goes around real slow. That's kind of nice if you got kids that are short or you got a wife that's kind of short. You don't want to, slamming the tailgate down. That's my biggest pet peeve. Open the tailgate, let it go. It ain't going to hurt nobody. Man, that is so hard on that truck. And I hate seeing people be abusive to a truck. Now, this is a little funny story about the Chevrolet truck, and Nightline NBC is who it was. They did a segment one time where they said the trucks were blowing up upon impact.
To see for ourselves what might happen in a side impact crash, Dateline NBC hired the Institute for Safety Analysis to conduct crash demonstrations. Unlike GM tests, the fuel tanks were filled with real gasoline. Look what happened.
Do you know why they were blowing up? They had detonation devices in the trucks. Nightline NBC was blowing them up.
NBC's contractor did put incendiary devices under the trucks to ensure that there would be a fire if gasoline were released from the truck's gas tank.
Claiming it was a dangerous truck back in the 70s or something. Nightline did that a whole lot with a lot of cars. The only one that was really dangerous was Ford guys. Bow your heads. Don't look. Bow your head. Yeah, there you go. The Pinto. It was embarrassing. I mean, you could kick this thing in the bumper and it would explode. You didn't want to have one of these cars. So, let's get back to this Chevrolet truck. One of the things you don't want to do on your Chevrolet truck is these big wheels and tires. I understand they look cool. If you get too much offset on these and the tires stick out real wide, and it does look neat. It's a cool look. But here's the problem. These front Chevy wheel bearings are expensive. And you get them stuck out there way too far, that is undue stress and load on that bearing, and you're going to tear it up. And when you tear up that bearing, depending on where you're at, we're talking between $400 and $500 for that front bearing. One side. That's one side. You got 2 sides to the truck, the right and left. I know the right and left. You're going to have to put 2 of them on there. That's $900 or $1,000 worth of bearings, and you got to pay to have them put in yet. Because you might not have these tools at home to do these bearings. They get a little bit involved, and sometimes they really get stuck in that spindle. So if you got a 4x4, it could even be worse. So be careful with the wheels and tires. A lot of the manufacturers, a lot of the dealers are putting the tires on there for you before you buy them, and that's usually got a pretty decent offset on it, so it's not to tear up the bearings as fast. So be careful with that. There's not a whole lot of problems with these trucks. The number one thing that they have problems with on this truck is the oil pressure switch. The light will come on while you're driving down the road saying there's no oil pressure. The light's on. You go in, everything's fine, but the oil sending unit, the oil pressure switch is bad. Now, it comes up twice in the comments here, in my report, that first thing that's wrong, oil pressure switch. Third thing that's wrong, oil pressure switch. The second thing that they have the most problems with is the EVAP system. And I know we talk about this a lot, but the EPA is so stringent on these regulations now that it's all about keeping the fumes in the vehicle. They don't want any of this stuff escaping into the atmosphere any more than it has to. So the EVAP systems are very important now, and they're very complex. They got a lot of valves opening, closing, and switching, and coming on and coming off. They fail. They had some problems with that on the 2010 Chevrolet truck. So that's just about it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of problems with the Chevrolet truck in 2010. There was a few issues, and I don't know the exact year on this one. I can look it up and let you know in another episode. They had rear end problems. I don't know what was going on with these things, but they would lock up, and they had a little issue with them. But they've since fixed that. It's not an issue anymore. So when you're buying your first 2010 Silverado, make sure you just go over and check things out. Take it to your local shop. Make sure it hasn't been rode too hard and it's not just destroyed, because you know they can clear the codes in the computer and they might not come back, like we always say, 2 to 3 cycles of the key. Maybe it's 50 miles. You go out and drive 50 miles in this thing and you bought it at a used car lot, they're going to be like, guess what? Too bad. Take it to the shop and get it fixed. So make sure you take it somewhere and get it checked out before you end up with a lemon. Because remember, when somebody sold a truck to a used car lot, they're probably getting rid of it because they put so much money into it that it's time for them to get a new truck and they just want to get rid of this one. Sometimes you pick up a good deal, but if you don't have it checked out, you could end up spending a lot of your hard-earned money. And instead of buying new wheels and tires for your rig, you're putting a new cat converter on it. You're putting a new transmission in it because it was rode too hard. One more thing we want to talk about on the problems of the 2010 Chevrolet truck that I almost forgot was the throttle body. Now, what will happen with this is the customer will come in, the complaint will be, my truck's idling really, really low. And when I turn the air conditioner on, it even goes lower, like it's almost going to die. Sometimes they do die. This is from carbon buildup around the throttle plate. You can usually take this off and clean it real good with some nice brake clean. Get in there and get all that carbon out of there, because what it does is it sticks. They don't have an idle air control valve on them. What they have, this is drive-by-wire. So your gas pedal is a potentiometer, and there's a motor on the throttle plate. When you push the gas down, it opens the motor. It sends a signal to open the motor. Well, since there's not a cable there anymore, they take this, and they have IAC motor, idle air control. That throttle plate has to open a little bit to keep it idling. If it's open a little bit and there's a big ridge of gunk and carbon and everything else and dirt, the air's not flowing through there like it's supposed to. It's cutting it down, it's choking it off, and your idle's too low. But this is usually not something that's a hard fix. Very seldom do you got to buy a new throttle body. You just got to clean yours, get a new O-ring, put it back on there, you're on the street. If you're having this done at a shop, you know, 100, 200 bucks, you're out the door, no big deal. Now your truck's back to 100%. All right, your law dog bite of the week. Don't get bit by the dog. You guys that like to raise your trucks up, do the four-wheel drive thing, 28 inches on the front bumper from underneath the bumper to the ground, and in the back 30 inches. That is the state of Illinois. You can't be over that. It could give you a ticket. Generally, they're not writing these tickets unless you get pulled over for speeding and you say, I know the law because my daddy was a judge, my mommy was an attorney, and I know the law. Guess what? Now he's going to nitpick your truck to death, and you're probably going to get that ticket if you're over 28 in the front, 30 in the rear. Just be careful. You know, anything that's bigger than that should probably be a trail rig anyway. You don't want, you listen, I'm going to be 50 years old this year. Shut up. Don't make fun. I don't want to be jumping out of nothing that's more 28, 30 in the back, because that's going to hurt when you jump down on the knees for about 4 or 5 years, and your back's going to start hurting, your knees going to start hurting. Before you know it, you're the old dude with a milk crate trying to get in your truck. That's just embarrassing. No, I haven't done it before. Not this week. All right. Hey, thanks for joining. That's all the time we got for this week. Join us every Wednesday for Dove Tech Talks, because we're bringing the greatest and the newest stuff to you first.